The air in Kepler's Rest cantina was thick with smoke and alien scents. Strange creatures from across the galaxy sat at metal tables, making deals that could start wars or end them. In the darkest corner, a massive figure hunched over a glass of burning blue liquid. Zixthera was a Vorthak, and Vorthaks were born killers. 7 feet tall with 4 powerful arms, her body was covered in natural armor plates that could stop most weapons. Scars crossed her chitinous hide like a map of every battle she had won. Her reputation spread across 17 star systems. When someone needed something found and killed, they called her. The cantina door burst open with a loud crash. 6 figures in military uniforms marched inside. Their leader was Captain Veltar, a Saurian with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. The Saurian Empire controlled half the galaxy through fear and violence. Other aliens quickly looked away or left their drinks unfinished. Veltar walked straight to Zixthera's table. His boots clicked on the metal floor like a countdown timer. The mercenary did not look up from her drink. "Zixthera of the Crimson Hunt," Veltar said in his hissing voice. "We have a job for you." The Vorthak's 4 arms moved slightly. 2 reached for weapons that were not there. Old habits never died. She finally looked up with eyes like black stones. "I am not working," she said simply. Veltar laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. "Everyone is working for the right price. We offer 1 million credits." Now Zixthera was interested. She had never heard such a high bounty. "What is the target?" "A human named Marcus Chen. He stole military data from our operations on Titan base. Very important data that could cause us problems." The cantina went silent. Even the background music stopped. Zixthera set down her glass very slowly. The blue liquid inside stopped glowing. "Human," she repeated. "Yes. They are new to space travel. Weak species, small bodies, no natural weapons. This should be easy work for someone of your skills." Zixthera stood up. Her full height made the Saurian soldiers step back. She looked down at Veltar with something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. "No," she said. "No." Veltar could not believe what he heard. "But the money, keep your money." Zixthera's voice was quiet, but every word cut through the air like a blade. "I have hunted across 17 star systems. I have brought down Krillian death beasts that can tear through starship hulls. I have cornered Nexus shadow wraiths that can phase through solid matter. But I warn you, Captain Veltar of the Saurian Empire, never pursue humans. Find another way." The soldiers looked at each other in confusion. The greatest hunter in known space was refusing a job. Veltar's face turned darker shades of green. "You are afraid of a human? A small, weak human?" Zixthera picked up her glass and finished the burning liquid in one gulp. She walked past the soldiers toward the door. When she reached Veltar, she stopped and looked down at him. "I am not afraid," she said quietly. "I am warning you. There is a difference." She left the cantina. The soldiers watched her go, then started laughing. "The great hunter has lost her nerve," one said. "She is getting old and soft," said another. Veltar was not laughing. He had seen something in the Vorthak's eyes, something that looked like memory. Bad memory. Outside the cantina, Zixthera walked through the station corridors. Kepler's Rest was built inside a dead asteroid, with tunnels and rooms carved from rock. Thousands of beings lived and worked here, making it the perfect place for people who did not want to be found. She reached her ship, a modified hunter-killer called the Bloodhound. It was small but fast, with enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. The ship had been her home for 20 years. As she entered the bridge, Zixthera thought about the soldiers' laughter. They would learn. Someone always took contracts she refused. Someone always thought they were better or smarter or more dangerous. They were always wrong. She sat in her pilot's chair and opened her personal logs. The holographic display showed hundreds of completed hunts. Each one had a story. Each one had taught her something, but there was one file she never opened anymore. One hunt that had changed everything. The file was marked with a simple human name, Mitchell family. Zixthera stared at the file for a long time. She remembered that job. She remembered why she had warned the Saurians. She remembered why no amount of money could make her hunt humans again. Through her ship's sensors, she watched 3 different mercenary groups leave the station. Word traveled fast in places like Kepler's Rest. The bounty on Marcus Chen would draw hunters from across the galaxy. She opened a bottle of Andronian wine and poured herself a glass. It was going to be a long few days. She would watch the news feeds and count how many hunters disappeared. She would remember her own hunt and why it had nearly broken her mind. Most importantly, she would wait for the survivors to come back, if any of them survived at all. The first news report came 6 hours later. A team of cybernetic mechanoids had tracked the human to an asteroid mining colony. They were the best tech hunters in the galaxy, with computer brains and robotic bodies that never got tired. The report said they had cornered their target. It would be over soon. Zixithera shook her head and poured another glass of wine. She knew better. She knew what humans could do when they were cornered. She knew because she had made the same mistake once. A mistake that still gave her nightmares. Marcus Chen checked his equipment one more time. The mining station's control room was small and cramped, filled with screens showing the asteroid's operations. Hundreds of human workers lived and worked in the tunnels below, digging precious metals from the rock. The mechanoids had found him just like he knew they would. Their sensors were too good to avoid forever. But Marcus was not running anymore. He was done running. Marcus was 43 years old and looked like any other human engineer. Medium height, brown hair starting to turn gray, hands stained with machine oil. The only thing special about him was his mind. He had served 10 years in Earth's military before becoming a civilian contractor. The aliens thought humans were weak because they were small. They thought humans were stupid because their technology was simple. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Through the security cameras, Marcus watched the mechanoid team approach the station. 6 of them, each one 8 feet tall and covered in armor plating. Their leaders, designated Alpha 7, moved with mechanical precision. Human Marcus Chen, Alpha 7's voice came through the station speakers. You are surrounded. Surrender and you will not be harmed. Marcus leaned into the microphone. I hear you, Alpha 7, but I have a better idea. Why don't you come and get me? The mechanoids looked at each other. They were not used to prey that talked back. Marcus had spent 3 days preparing the station. He knew the mechanoids would track him here. Their whole hunting strategy depended on their superior technology and logical thinking. They could not imagine how a primitive human might outthink their computer brains. The first mechanoid entered the main tunnel. Marcus watched from the control room as the alien stepped on a pressure plate. Nothing happened. The mechanoid continued forward, checking corners with military precision. 20 feet later, the tunnel floor disappeared. The mining charges Marcus had placed were small but perfectly positioned. The mechanoid fell through the floor into a maintenance shaft. More charges went off, sealing the tunnel above and below. One hunter was now trapped in a metal box 50 feet underground. What happened to Beta 3? Alpha 7 demanded through the communication system. Mining accident, Marcus said calmly. These old stations are dangerous. Maybe you should be more careful. The mechanoids regrouped and tried a different tunnel. This time Marcus was ready with a surprise they would never expect. He had rewired the station's gravity generators. As the second mechanoid reached the middle of the tunnel, Marcus flipped a switch. Gravity reversed in that section. The alien flew upward and crashed into the ceiling at high speed. His armor cracked and sparks flew from damaged circuits. Stop this, Alpha 7 shouted. Fight us properly. This is how humans fight, Marcus replied. We use our brains. The third and fourth mechanoids tried to enter through the station's loading dock. Marcus was waiting for them with his masterpiece. He had built an electromagnetic pulse generator using the mining equipment's power core. When the aliens reached the dock, Marcus activated the device. Every electronic system in their bodies shut down instantly. They collapsed like broken toys. Their computer brains scrambled beyond repair. Alpha 7 and the last mechanoid, Delta 9, stood outside the station. They were the smartest of the group, with advanced tactical programming. They should have been able to solve any problem, but they were thinking like machines, not like humans. Analysis, Alpha 7 said to his companion. The human has superior knowledge of this facility. He has prepared defensive positions. Our technological advantage is being neutralized. Recommendation? Delta 9 asked. Withdraw and request support. Marcus heard their conversation through the security system. He shook his head. They still did not understand. Alpha 7, he called out. You are not leaving. Human, you cannot stop us. We are faster and stronger than you. Maybe, Marcus said, but you are thinking like hunters. I am thinking like prey, and cornered prey is the most dangerous thing in the universe. The mechanoids tried to return to their ship. They found that the landing pad was now filled with holes. Marcus had used mining charges to make it impossible to land or take off. Their ship was trapped just like they were. For the first time in their artificial lives, the mechanoids felt something like fear. Marcus had spent his military career studying alien tactics. The mechanoids always followed the same pattern. They would track, surround, and capture with overwhelming force. They never planned for a target that refused to run. "You want me?" Marcus called out. "Come get me. But know this, I'm not running anymore. This asteroid is my ground now, and on my ground with my rules your technology means nothing." Alpha 7 and Delta 9 looked at each other. Their tactical programs were failing. They had no solution for an enemy that turned their environment into a weapon. High above them, in a ship hidden behind Kepler's Rest, Zixathara watched the news feeds. The reports were confused and contradictory. The mechanoid team had gone silent. Their last transmission said they were investigating equipment failures. She knew better. There were no equipment failures. There was just a human doing what humans did best, adapting, surviving, and fighting with everything they had. The news feeds would not report the truth for hours. But Zixathara already knew how this would end. She had seen it before. She opened another bottle of wine and waited for the next team to try their luck. Dr. Sarah Mitchell looked out at the frozen landscape of Research Station Omega 7 and tried not to think about death. The ice planet had no name, just a number in the galactic catalog. It was the kind of place where people went to disappear. That was 6 years ago. Now as Zixathara sat in her ship watching news feeds about Marcus Chen, the memories came flooding back like a broken dam. The Mitchell contract had seemed simple. A human family had witnessed a crime syndicate meeting on Proxima Station. Standard cleanup work. Find them, eliminate them, collect payment. The syndicate offered double her usual rate because humans were new to space and might be unpredictable. Zixathara had tracked them across 3 systems before cornering them on the research station. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was a xenobiologist, studying ice world bacteria. Her husband David was a systems engineer. Their daughter Emma was 12 years old, the perfect family to vanish without questions. Zixathara had expected to finish the job in a few hours. Humans were supposed to be weak, scared, and helpless. She was a Vorthak warrior with centuries of hunting experience. She was wrong about everything. The first sign of trouble came when she reached the station. The landing pad was covered in ice, but the ice was wrong. It was too smooth, too perfect. When her ship touched down, the ice cracked and her landing gear sank into hidden water. David Mitchell had rigged a heating system under the pad. Zixathara's ship was now trapped until the ice refroze, which would take days in the planet's climate. She was stranded with her prey. The station itself was a maze of laboratories and living quarters connected by heated tunnels. Zixathara tracked the family's heat signatures to the main lab. She expected to find them cowering and begging for mercy. Instead, she found an empty room with a recorded message. "Hello," Dr. Mitchell's calm voice said from the speakers. "If you are hearing this, you are probably here to kill my family. I understand this is business for you, but for us it is survival. We will not make this easy." Zixathara smiled. Pray that thought it could fight back was always more interesting. She was still smiling 20 minutes later when the lab's atmospheric system began pumping in a gas that made her dizzy. Dr. Mitchell had synthesized a compound specifically designed to affect Vorthak brain chemistry. Nothing fatal, just enough to slow her reflexes and cloud her thinking. The second surprise came when she tried to leave the lab. The doors had been rewired by David's engineering skills. They would only open for human DNA signatures. Zixathara had to use her plasma cutter to burn through reinforced metal. By the time she escaped, the family had moved to a new location. The hunt continued for 3 weeks. Every time Zixathara found their trail, she discovered new traps and surprises. David turned the station's heating system into a weapon, creating rooms that were burning hot or freezing cold. Sarah synthesized toxins and sedatives from the lab's equipment. Even young Emma helped, using her small size to crawl through maintenance shafts and sabotage equipment. But the worst part was their unity. Most species scattered when hunted. Every individual looked out for themselves first. The Mitchells were different. They protected each other with a ferocity that made no logical sense. When Zixathara cornered David in the station's power room, he threw himself at her claws rather than let her pass. He had no weapons and no chance of winning. But he fought anyway, buying his family time to escape. When she tracked Sarah to the medical bay, the doctor stayed behind to slow her down while David and Emma ran. She could have fled with them, but she chose to sacrifice herself for a few extra minutes. The worst moment came when Zixithara finally caught Emma alone in a supply closet. The girl was small and frightened, but when the Vorthak offered to let her live if she told her where her parents were hiding, Emma just shook her head. "I will never tell you," the child said. "Never." Zixithara could have tortured the information out of her. She could have threatened her parents' lives, but something in the girl's eyes stopped her. It was not fear or hatred. It was determination. The same look she had seen in every human she had encountered. They would never give up, never surrender, never abandon each other. By the end of the 3rd week, Zixithara was exhausted, wounded, and mentally shattered. She had finally cornered the family in the station's main laboratory. They stood together, parents protecting their child, ready to die rather than submit. In that moment, Zixithara realized she was not hunting prey. She was facing something that would never stop fighting, never stop adapting, and never stop protecting their own. The Mitchells were broken and bleeding, but they still stood together. They still defied her. She could have killed them. Her contracts always ended the same way. But as she looked at the family, Zixithara understood that killing them would not end anything. Other humans would come looking for them. Other humans would investigate. Other humans would remember. Humans never forgot their own. Instead, she made a deal. The Mitchells would disappear completely. New names, new lives, far from the crime syndicate's reach. In return, they would never speak of what they had witnessed. Zixithara told the syndicate that the family had died in an accident. She kept the payment and used it to set up the Mitchells' new life. She never hunted humans again. Now, 6 years later, she watched the news feeds as 3 more mercenary teams disappeared trying to catch Marcus Chen. The reports were confusing and contradictory, but she understood what was really happening. Marcus was not just running. He was teaching the galaxy what humans could do when they decided to fight back. The Fenrir pack hunters had been the latest casualties. Their ship was found drifting in space, life support systems sabotaged. The hunters themselves were alive but psychologically broken. They kept mumbling about voices in the dark and traps that made no sense. Zixithara poured herself another drink and wondered how long it would take the galaxy to learn what she already knew. Humans were not the prey. They never had been. Marcus Chen stood in the cargo bay of the freighter Distant Star and watched his enemies make their final mistake. Through the security cameras, he could see the Fenrir pack hunters moving through the ship's corridors. 6 wolf-like aliens with razor fangs and pack tactics that had conquered a dozen worlds. They thought they were hunting one frightened human. They had no idea what was really happening. Marcus had spent 2 weeks studying Fenrir psychology and social structure. Their strength came from their pack mentality. They fought as one unit, shared information instantly, and never left a pack member behind. It made them nearly unstoppable in normal combat, but it also made them predictable. The pack leader, Scarfang, sniffed the air in the ship's main corridor. Human scent was everywhere, but it was old and confusing. Marcus had spent days moving through every section of the ship, leaving false trails and contradictory clues. "He is here," Scarfang growled to his pack. "Spread out. Standard hunting formation." Marcus smiled as he watched them split into 3 groups. That was exactly what he wanted them to do. The first group found Marcus's hiding place in Storage Bay 7. It was obviously a trap, too convenient, too visible, but when they investigated carefully, they found real evidence that someone had been living there. Food wrappers, sleeping gear, even human hair samples. What they did not find was the speaker system Marcus had hidden in the walls. Late that night, as the Fenrir hunters tried to sleep, the voices began. Marcus had recorded hours of audio, whispered conversations, footsteps in empty corridors, mechanical sounds that had no source. He played them at random intervals, always from locations where no human could possibly be. The pack hunters' enhanced hearing was their greatest strength. It was also their weakness. They could hear things that did not exist, sounds that made no logical sense. Human voices coming from sealed walls, footsteps in rooms they had already searched. By the second day, the pack was showing signs of stress. They jumped at shadows and argued about things they thought they heard. Their perfect coordination began to break down. Marcus escalated the psychological pressure. He left messages written in human languages the Fenrir could not read. He moved their equipment when they were not looking. He made it seem like there were multiple humans on the ship, working together in impossible ways. The pack hunters' unity began to fracture. Some thought they were facing a single clever human. Others believed they were fighting an entire human crew. A few began to whisper that humans might have psychic powers or advanced technology. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Marcus was just one human who understood his enemies better than they understood themselves. On the third day, Scarfang made the decision that sealed their fate. He ordered the pack to split up and search the ship section by section. It was logical military thinking, but it ignored everything that made Fenrir hunters dangerous. Separated from his pack, each hunter was just an individual alien in an environment designed to confuse and disorient them. Marcus picked them off one by one, not with violence, but with fear. He locked one hunter in a storage room and played the sounds of his packmates calling for help, sounds that came from empty air. He convinced another that the ship's computer system was talking to him in human voices. A third hunter became convinced that the walls themselves were alive and watching him. By the end of the week, the Fenrir pack was a broken unit. They begged their handlers to extract them from the ship. Their final report spoke of impossible human tactics and supernatural abilities. Marcus had never touched them. He had simply used their own minds against them. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched in confusion as report after report came in of failed hunts. The mechanoid team had been found on the asteroid station, their equipment destroyed and their tactical programming scrambled. The Fenrir pack was requesting psychological treatment for trauma disorders. 8 more hunting teams had tried to track Marcus Chen. 8 more had failed in increasingly spectacular ways. The Galactic News Network ran a special report titled, "The Human Who Cannot Be Caught." Military analysts argued about Marcus's possible secret weapons or alien allies. Conspiracy theorists claimed he was using advanced Earth technology that violated galactic law. The truth was simpler. Marcus was just a human doing what humans did best, adapting to impossible situations and turning every disadvantage into a weapon. But something else was happening that the news networks did not report. Other humans throughout the galaxy had begun to take notice. Marcus's escapes were being studied and copied. Human traders and engineers started sharing stories of their own encounters with alien authorities. A pattern was emerging. On the mining station where Marcus had defeated the mechanoids, human workers began modifying their equipment in subtle ways. Nothing illegal or obvious, just small improvements that made their jobs easier and their bosses more dependent on their skills. On the freighter where he had broken the Fenrir pack, human crew members started organizing informal networks. They shared information about alien employers, warned each other about dangerous contracts, and provided support when one of their own was threatened. Marcus had not just escaped his hunters. He had shown every human in the galaxy what was possible when they stopped thinking like victims and started thinking like survivors. The hegemony leadership watched these developments with growing alarm. Captain Veltar had convinced them that one human criminal could be easily captured. Instead, they faced something they had never encountered before, an entire species that refused to be intimidated. The decision was made in a closed session of the Hegemony Council. If one human could cause this much trouble, then humans as a species were clearly a threat to galactic stability. The bounty on Marcus Chen was expanded to include any human who aided him. Then it was expanded again to include any human who showed similar rebellious tendencies. Finally, in an act of desperation that would be remembered throughout galactic history, the hegemony placed a standing bounty on every human in known space. They had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They had no idea what they had done. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called for the first time in 200 years. Representatives from every major species crowded into the Great Assembly Hall on Neutral Station Prime. The air buzzed with worried conversations in a dozen alien languages. At the center of the chaos stood Marcus Chen, no longer running, no longer hiding. He wore a simple human suit and carried himself like a man who had nothing left to fear. Behind him sat representatives from every human colony, trading post, and settlement in known space. The hegemony's war declaration had lasted exactly 17 days. In those 17 days, galactic civilization had nearly collapsed. It started with the ships. Human engineers worked on nearly every vessel in space, from massive cargo freighters to luxury passenger liners. When the bounty went galaxy-wide, those engineers did not fight back directly. They simply stopped working. Overnight, thousands of ships found themselves stranded with critical systems failing. Engines that had run perfectly for decades suddenly developed mysterious problems. Life support systems began shutting down for no apparent reason. Navigation computers displayed impossible readings. The aliens frantically tried to repair the damage only to discover that human modifications were everywhere. Every system had been quietly improved over the years, in ways that made sense only to human minds. Without humans to maintain them, the ships became expensive pieces of floating scrap metal. But that was just the beginning. Human traders had been moving goods throughout the galaxy for 50 years. They knew every trade route, every supplier, every critical junction in the economic system. When the bounty was declared, they did not attack the system directly. They simply stopped participating in it. Goods that normally moved efficiently from system to system began backing up at ports. Critical supplies were delayed or diverted. Medical equipment bound for alien hospitals somehow ended up in human colonies instead. Food shipments meant for wealthy hegemony worlds disappeared into the vast network of human trading ships. The hegemony accused humans of theft and sabotage. Humans simply pointed to their contracts and shipping manifests. Everything was technically legal. Goods were being delivered exactly as promised, just not where the buyers expected them. But the real nightmare began when the communications networks failed. Humans had designed and maintained the galaxy's information systems for decades. They understood the networks better than anyone, including the aliens who had originally built them. When the war declaration came, human technicians did not destroy anything. They just started being very, very literal about their programming. Military communications meant for hegemony, commanders were accidentally routed to human colonies first. Classified information somehow became unclassified due to computer errors. Personal messages between alien officials were mysteriously broadcast on public channels. The hegemony's deepest secrets began spilling into the open. Their illegal weapons programs, their slavery operations, their plans to eliminate inferior species, everything, came pouring out through communication systems that no longer obeyed their builders. Alien governments that had feared the hegemony for centuries suddenly learned that their enemy was weaker than they had thought. Resistance movements that had operated in secret for decades found themselves with unlimited intelligence about their oppressors. The galaxy began to burn, and the humans had lit the match without firing a single shot. Council Representative Thex Mora of the Crystalline Collective called the emergency session to order. Her voice echoed through the vast hall like breaking glass. "We are here because our civilization faces a crisis unlike any in recorded history," she announced. "The hegemony's conflict with the human species has brought chaos to every system under our protection." Captain Veltar stood to address the council. His usually perfect military uniform was wrinkled and stained. He had not slept in days. "The humans have committed acts of terrorism across the galaxy," he declared. "They have sabotaged our ships, stolen our goods, and violated our communications. This council must authorize a full military response to eliminate this threat." The hall erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted over each other in dozens of languages. Some supported the hegemony's position, but many others had different ideas. "Your military response is what caused this crisis," called out Ambassador Kretal of the Merchant Alliance. "Our trade routes are collapsing because you declared war on the people who keep them running. The humans have done nothing illegal," added Representative Varthok of the Free Systems. "They are simply no longer cooperating with a government that wants to exterminate them. That is their right under galactic law." Veltar's face darkened. "They are destroying our way of life." "No," said a quiet voice from the back of the hall. "They are showing you what that way of life really is." The council chamber fell silent. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. Sixthera walked slowly down the center aisle. Her forearms were empty of weapons, but her presence filled the room with tension. She had never addressed the council before, never involved herself in galactic politics. She stopped in front of the speaker's platform and looked up at the assembled representatives. "I am Zixathara of the Crimson Hunt," she said simply. "I have hunted prey across 17 star systems. I was offered the contract to capture Marcus Chen, and I refused it. Captain Veltar asked me why. Today I will answer that question." She gestured toward Marcus, who stood calmly among the human delegation. "You see that human, and you think you understand what he is. Small body, weak frame, primitive technology. You think humans are prey because that is what you want to believe." Zixthera began walking around the council chamber, her voice carrying to every corner. "I made the same mistake once. I accepted a contract to eliminate a human family. I thought it would be easy work, a few hours at most. Instead, that hunt lasted 3 weeks and nearly broke my mind." She stopped in front of the hegemony delegation. "I learned something during those 3 weeks that Captain Veltar has forgotten. There is a difference between being physically weak and being helpless. Humans are not helpless. They have never been helpless." Representative Thexmora leaned forward. "What exactly are you saying, Hunter?" "I am saying that you cannot hunt a species that treats every setback as education, every defeat as data, and every threat to one as a threat to all." Zixthara turned to face the entire council. "You asked me to capture one human. But there is no such thing as one human. When you threaten Marcus Chen, you threaten every human trader who moves your goods. When you hunt one human family, you teach every human engineer how to defend themselves." She pointed at the chaos visible through the chamber's viewing screens. Ships drifting powerless, communication networks in meltdown, trade routes collapsing. "You think this is sabotage and terrorism? You are wrong. This is what happens when you declare war on the species that built your civilization. Humans did not destroy your systems. They simply stopped maintaining them. You are seeing what your galaxy looks like without human cooperation." Veltar stood up again, his voice full of rage. "Are you suggesting we surrender to these primitives?" Zixthera looked at him with something like pity. "I am suggesting that you learn what I learned during my hunt. Humans are not primitive. They are the most advanced species in the galaxy at the only thing that really matters: survival." She walked back to Marcus Chen and stood beside him. "You wanted to know why I warned you never to pursue humans. This is why. You cannot defeat a species that never gives up, never stops adapting, and never abandons their own. Every time you try to hurt them, they become stronger. Every time you try to control them, they become more creative." Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and clear. "We did not want this war," he said to the council. "All I wanted was to expose the hegemony's illegal operations and find safety for my people. But when you declared every human in the galaxy to be your enemy, you gave us no choice but to show you what that really means." He gestured to the human delegation behind him. "We are engineers and traders, doctors and teachers. We are not soldiers. But when you threaten our families, our children, our way of life, we become something else. We become a force that cannot be stopped because we will never stop trying." The council chamber was completely silent now. Every representative understood what they were hearing. Marcus continued. "You built your civilization on the idea that some species are predators and others are prey. You are wrong. There are only survivors and those who have not yet learned how to survive. Humanity has been learning for 50,000 years. He turned to address Captain Veltar directly. "You want to eliminate the human threat? There is only one way to do that. Stop making us your enemy. The choice is yours." The vote was unanimous. The hegemony's war declaration was revoked, and Marcus Chen was granted full amnesty. The criminal charges were dropped, and the stolen data became evidence in a galactic investigation of hegemony war crimes. But more importantly, humanity's status in the galaxy changed forever. No longer seen as primitive newcomers, they were recognized as the one species you never wanted to make angry. As the council session ended, Zixthera made one final entry in her personal logs. Contract permanently refused. Species designation Homo sapiens. Threat level absolute. Recommendation: